This is the Player 4 Podcast. Join us each week as we talk about video games, entertainment, and pop culture, and bring in guests from the Rooster Teeth community. Player 4 has entered the game.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Player 4 Podcast!
Hello, I am Tristan, aka Shadraseer on the Rooster Teeth website.
I am Malachi, aka Tsukikiba.
Wait, where's Alex?
If we keep holding this pregnant pause, maybe he'll be born into it.
Yeah, no, you see, with a click of a button, I get rid of all the pauses. So I have to put one in artificially. So we're artificially going to birth Alex. Oh, okay, I guess I should introduce myself.
I'm Alex.
I'm Joseph, aka J Dunlap. Hi guys, it's a podcast.
Maybe Alex got Dookie Nut in some random weird place.
Wow. Are you suggesting that DookieNet is, like, contagious? And he got it in a bad place on his body?
You never know.
Yeah, that's a dark path. Anyway, so
Yeah.
we wanted to have a nice little chitty chat podcast, podcast.
Shiny new things.
Shiny podcast. We were going to talk about a couple of things. We had some interest in talking about the new Marvel stuff that's going on and some new tech stuff. So we were going to talk about, I got myself finally, after years of griping about it, a new laptop. I also recently got a new mouse. And we were going to talk about the return of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Luke Cage, and the Marvel's Defenders, which are all going to be Netflix shows up and coming. So, guys, I finally got a new laptop, like I've been saying I would for years.
Is it an actual laptop, or is it one of those laptops/tablets?
It's actually not a laptop. It is a tablet. I got a Microsoft Windows Surface Pro 4, and I really like it. It's like an iPad, but a little bit bigger. Like, I just look at the iPad, my dad has one, and it just looks to me like a bigger version of the iPod. This is really just a laptop without a keyboard. It's a full Windows operating system. I have full access to word processing and the internet. Word processing's a little tough without a physical keyboard. I don't like typing on screens.
Doesn't the Surface have a physical keyboard that you can get for it, like it attaches to it? Right?
You can. It does have one. They call it the cover.
It doesn't come with it?
It does not come with it, and that is why I don't have it. I also don't feel like I need it, because I don't use it for typing too much. Mostly I use it for taking notes. I take it to work, and I sit in meetings with it, and I'm writing notes on the screen with the pen that it comes with on Notepad, which is really cool that I have access to my Notepad from anywhere that I can log into my live account, because it goes into the live server. It's like Notepad Live or whatever. So that's really cool. It's constantly being saved. I don't have to worry about it. So it's really useful for taking notes at work, and I can draw little figures and diagrams, whatever I need to, on the screen to help illustrate my points. So that's really cool. But my favorite thing to use it for is for sketching. I like to draw as a hobby. Not very good, but it's really great for that. The pen's very responsive. I actually just got a program for it, so I spent a little money, but the program was on sale, called Clip Studio Paint, a cheaper version of Photoshop that has more tools for drawing as opposed to having tools for photo editing. Beyond that, it's just really useful. Like I said, work, leisure, it does it all, and it's really compact. The reason I haven't gotten the keyboard, Malachi, is because they charge you $130 for it.
That's a pretty penny.
Yeah, so I don't.
As your wallet explodes, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't feel any compulsion to do that. I can get by just fine without the keyboard. You know, I struggle if I want to type something on it. I can. I struggle through a little bit because it's weird. It has Cortana, and it says that it has the same grammar and spelling checking that like the Windows Phone is really great for. And I will say, my Windows Phone is great for sending texts or typing things on, because it checks and auto-corrects things, and it's very intelligent and intuitive about how it does that. The Surface doesn't do that at all, is what I notice. Like, even if I put, like, I and then space, it doesn't even auto-capitalize I. which kind of surprised me. It doesn't auto-capitalize I, and it doesn't add apostrophes to words that are very clearly in need of apostrophes, which I'm very used to my phone doing.
No crutch?
Yeah, so I have to do all my own typing again.
It's probably for the sake of processing speed so that it can worry about other things for how compact it is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and I don't, I can get by without that. I'm not going to complain about that. That's fine if I have to. Typing's a little bit harder. It's not a big deal. Now, the thing that really kills me is that you get the on-screen keyboard, and then if you want numbers, you got to hit the numbers button. And so this takes you to the numbers, and it flips the keyboard over visually on the screen, and you get a new set of keys there. And over on the left-hand side are all the special symbols like slashes and question marks and smiley faces and crap like that. And on the right side is a 10-key numerical entry pad, kind of like what's on the right-hand side of every keyboard made since, 1930 on typewriters. Except that instead of having, starting with 0 in the bottom left corner and having 1 directly above that, going 0, 1, 4, 7 vertically up that column, it has 0 in the bottom left corner, and then it has 7 directly above it, and then 4, and then 1. So it's arranged like a keypad on a cell phone.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of times what they were doing with a lot of the Windows programs is there was an 8 that was heavy and made it look...
Yeah.
The whole freaking startup was like tile sets to make it look like a freaking cell phone.
Yeah, 8 basically turned your computer into your cell phone, and that's what got everybody riled up about it, because nobody wants your computer to work like a cell phone. They want their cell phone to work more like a computer.
They're like, hey, look, see, they work the same way. Isn't that what you wanted?
That is exactly what they said. That was Windows. Microsoft's whole shtick with that was they said, we want there to be no learning curve moving from one device to another. If you have a desktop, if you have a tablet, if you have a Windows phone, we want this to be an intuitive process that there's no learning curve for. So we want them all to work the same. So instead of taking the Windows phone, taking the phone and making it more computer-like, they made it as computer-like as they could. You have to remember that with a phone, you're on a smaller screen, so you need big contextual button, these big buttons, icons, tiles, whatever you want to use, that people can easily access with their fingers on a touch screen. That's fine for a touch screen when you're using it just the touch screen all the time. But with a computer, even if you have a touch screen, my friend has a touch screen computer, like a desktop that has a touch screen. I, using his computer, have never used the touchscreen functionality. I use the keyboard and mouse to interact with it. And when you're using the keyboard and mouse, you don't need, nor do you generally want, giant tiles. You want lists of things.
Does he even use his touchscreen?
I don't think he knows it's a touchscreen. But I'm not sure. I haven't asked him. Anyway, so yeah, it was part of a movement, Joseph, to remove learning curves between switching from device to device. You might remember 3 years ago, I think it might have been, that Skype said, "Oh, we're doing an update, and after this, Skype will no longer be compatible with this, that, and the other thing." And for your general user, it didn't make a difference. You just saw, "Oh, I'm getting an update." That update was to make it so that the Skype program had exactly the same coding no matter what system it was on. So it was the same install file and the same functionality from PC to tablet to phone. And the reason I know that is because I used to use a third-party program called Amolto, which allowed me to record Skype calls in good quality. I used that when I was doing Let's Plays with my friend Noah, and that going away was sort of the beginning of the end of our Let's Plays. I also got a new mouse, which I know that my friend Drew is really happy about because we play Mech Warrior together and you have to have multiple weapon groups, and he could never understand why I only use 2 weapon groups in that game. Because I only have the 2 mouse buttons, right and left click. He's like, well, bind something to your middle click. I use that for zooming. I need to zoom in.
Gotta be quick with the fingers, though, Tristan.
I am quick with the fingers.
Move from WASD up to your number keys.
Yeah, well, so I would only ever have like a weapon group 3, and I would make sure it was something that I only used in certain situations. Now I can have 4 weapon groups on my mouse, and it's like, yay! I got myself a Logitech G303S, and I don't know if you were involved in this, Joseph. Did our friend Woman Friday tell you when she was trying to get a new mouse?
Very likely, and I probably forgot.
I won't forget. She involved me heavily in her process of getting a new mouse. She kept sending me pictures and specifications and being like, I'm trying this one. I went to the store and I got to take this one home and try it out. And I went to the store and I've only got a day left. Then I'm going to go to the store and try this one out. And then she'd do that. And then I'd start getting texts from her that said, all right, I tried these both out. I liked this, that, and the other thing about this one, but I didn't like these 3 things. And I like these 3 things about that other mouse, but not these 4 things. So I'm still torn. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's a mouse. And I did my best to try and help her, but I kind of know the struggle now because I was having a problem with the laser on the mouse that I've been using for like 10 years or more. About 10 years on this old Kensington 2-button mouse, where I would move the mouse around and it would jitter around and it would, I'd be just moving it smoothly across the mouse pad and the mouse would just be dancing around. And in computer games, that's not really good. It made shooters very hard. So I took it apart trying to fix that, and it sort of was corrected after I like scrubbed the lens and put it back together. But in trying to put it back together, it had these one-way tabs that I totally failed at inserting the proper way and broke them.
Good job.
So, yeah. So then I was like holding the mouse together as I was using it, and that's when I finally said, okay, time to get a new mouse. So I went into the store, and they have the display with all these different mice on it, and then the shelves where you can pick up the box and go buy it. And I was handling the mouse on the display, going, okay, I like this, that, and the other thing about this one, but not that. I was having a Woman Friday moment. And finally, I just went, okay, I kind of like this one. And I went down to the shelves, and there were none of it. So I went to my second choice, and there were none of that. Like, I was standing there going, none of the display mice are actually available to buy. Why? And the ones that were available to buy, they didn't have displays of. So I had to just, like, grab a box that looked okay and go, if I don't like this, I can return it, right?
Well, did you ask to see if there are any in the back?
Yeah, I did. And
like...
I had two sales clerks tell me everything that we have is here. We don't have back stock.
No, that sucks.
And I'm going, what do you mean you don't have back stock?
Tristan, I could just imagine seeing you, because you like to play Mech Warrior, with your mouse freaking out and just seeing your torso spinning in the air and lasers flying. I got this, guys! I got this!
Luckily, it never got that bad. Like, the jitters were small, but they were enough to make you miss your shots in a shooter game, and that can make you just die. You know that's not fun.
You gotta be
like, well, I would still be alive if my mouse hadn't jittered just then.
You got to be one of those guys one time just spinning around, shooting in the air. I got this, guys. I got it.
Yeah. I'm having a problem with my mouse.
Alright, something I just want to mention because it is coming out, just for people that, if they were interested in waiting on it, the PS4 Pro is coming out November 10th.
PS what?
PS4 Pro.
What's that?
Basically just a PS4 that's tweaked and upgraded a little more. It's what people have been saying.
What can it do that the regular PS4 doesn't?
It's going to be able to process 4K, so a little more in depth with lighting and coloring and textures. If developers
4K sounds like a lot of money. I don't feel like dropping $4,000 on a game system.
No, it's only $400, but still, that's on the upper end.
Although I will say $400 with the past trend of video game systems is almost a reasonable price.
Well, wasn't the original PS3 like $600
$600, yeah.
This is going to have a 1 terabyte hard drive. It's actually going to have a lot more bandwidth on it. To what I've read, it's going to be a pretty beast of a machine. But I don't know if I misheard or read it wrong, but I don't know if it's going to have a Blu-ray player or not. It might not. But
I had heard that they were shaving cost by getting rid of something, and I thought I'd heard something about the Blu-ray player.
So
but I thought that that confuses me, because I thought that the I thought the game discs were written to Blu-ray. Are they not?
I have no idea.
Mm.
That'd be something to look up.
So if they can get rid of the Blu-ray player, then I would guess that means that the game discs are not Blu-rays.
But
Somebody's going to be upset.
Yeah. But
Might not be able to watch your movies on your game system anymore.
I can't say it for sure, but the PS4 Pro is coming out November 10th. If anyone was waiting for it, it's almost here. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Yay.
Okay, so let's move into the main topic of discussion for the second half of the episode, which is Marvel, specifically Marvel TV shows.
They're pretty marvelous.
We like to talk about Marvel, don't we?
Well, yes, we do. I don't know what you want me to say. Yes, we do.
We like our
Get off this
superheroes.
podcast, Malachi.
Yeah, you're not part of this podcast anymore.
Well, actually, isn't DC the one with more of the spandex in it?
Yeah.
So we like our more, I don't know what you call it, more realistic superheroes?
Or sometimes it's usually some form of radiation that does it. I mean, especially the Fantastic Four.
Okay, so the topic of discussion for this half of the episode is what is the future of Marvel TV shows? So
I think they're going to be on Netflix.
Oh, are they? Okay. I want to start off by just talking about the Marvel phases of the MCU, because we're talking MCU here. We're talking the Disney property. Phase 1 was the introductory phase of just getting the Avengers introduced, and then culminated in the Avengers movie directed by Joss Whedon. Then we had Phase 2, which was to bring us to the point where we could have the Civil War. So Phase 1 was Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger, and Marvel's The Avengers. Then Phase 2 was Iron Man 3, which we do not speak of, Thor the Dark World, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, which was not the culmination of Phase 2 because Ant-Man was the final Phase 2 movie. And then Phase 3 began with Civil War. So we are currently in Phase 3 cinematically, and the next movie is actually November 4th, Doctor Strange. And then next year we're going to get Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, following year Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then the following year Captain Marvel, an untitled Avengers sequel. And they canceled the Inhumans. So before we get to talk about the TV shows, I guess, why don't we just kind of talk about how things have shaped up cinematically? What do you guys think about overall the property that Disney's holding on to currently?
I liked the first Avengers, and I loved the Iron Man stuff. So I really liked Phase 1 of the cinematic universe. Like, I liked a lot of the movies that came out in Phase 1. The original Thor, Iron Man's 1 and 2. I wasn't super impressed with Civil War.
I think it's more of the sense because, in the beginning it was a handful of things and they were developing things and you're really interested. Now they're trying to cram so much in it, it's too much maybe.
Well, there's a little bit of that, but mostly what I don't like is the result of that. And the result of that is that they tend to not do certain things as well as, they have or they could have. I watched Civil War again on Saturday, actually, because a friend wanted to watch it. And I did have this to say about it. The way certain characters in Civil War were portrayed, I thought, was excellent, actually. Not all of them, but some of them. My biggest problem with Civil War was the storytelling. But, I don't know, do you know who they've got for this Spider-Man Homecoming? I want to recommend the kid that they used in Civil War.
That was the reason he was in Civil War, is because he's the new Spider-Man.
Okay, good.
Sony's making it.
He played an excellent Spider-Man.
He did. He really did. He is the Spider-Man we've been wanting, which is the blabbermouth teenager.
The smart-ass teenager.
It's not Spider-Man without that.
It's not.
Yeah.
And it's, I like Sam Raimi because of Sam Raimi's history. That's not to say that Sam Raimi always directs good movies. And the original Spider-Man that Sam Raimi did was a fun movie, but then he just started going down this weird emo path with Peter Parker, and he's 20-something years old. It's he's not the snarky teenager that Spider-Man was always written as.
Yeah, I liked a lot about that franchise, the original franchise. It had a lot of the misfitness, he's this nerd, he doesn't fit in, and he's even poor, that's part of his character, but the snarkiness was not there. So they really did cast well. What I was going to say is that this particular movie is going to be made by Sony, I believe. They still retain the rights. They just made a deal where they'll loan out that actor playing Spider-Man to Disney for the larger movies. But I believe they're still making the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, maybe with Marvel looking over their shoulder or something. I would agree with you, Tristan, that Civil War was underwhelming. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm saying it didn't meet expectations. And I think it's very much for the same reasons that Ultron was, and it's the reasons Malachi put forth, which is the reason that Joss Whedon's not doing anything right now. Because they made him do so much with Age of Ultron. Almost everything that Batman vs. Superman was criticized for had already been done with Age of Ultron, which was being multiple movies.
Let's not bring up Batman vs. Superman, because I can rant for hours about everything that was wrong with that film. So we're going to skip past that and say, I did read recently a little interview, or an excerpt from an interview that they were doing with Joss Whedon, or that they did, which was him explaining why he just wasn't going to work on these films anymore, which was what you said. There's just too much going on. It's too big and unwieldy. And he, in his words, isn't going to be able to do the good job that needs to be done with this material. Now, my problem with that argument is that means he's leaving it up to somebody else to do this job that he believes he can't. And I just don't think that, I know that Ultron was rough. There was a lot of tough time with Ultron, but I still don't think that there's anybody more qualified than him. Even if he can't do the job, can't do it the justice he wants to do it, anybody else is going to do worse. That's my personal opinion.
He could make it passable when everyone else just make it terrible.
Yeah.
It was at the very least passable. It was.
Ultron, like I said, Ultron was rough. Ultron was...
I would watch it again. I won't say that about many movies. I would watch Age of Ultron again. There were some good story points going on. We had a lengthy discussion a long time ago, several months ago, about the whole somebody help Tony Stark. He's dealing with PTSD. Nobody cares.
Yes. Nobody cares.
Yeah,
and he's making bad decisions because nobody's helping him.
And it was maybe a missed opportunity so far to not further examine that rather than just hint at it. And it might be the idea that they have all these different storytellers, all these different directors and writers sort of passing the baton. Let's say you're in a class, a creative writing class, and
we'll talk about that in the next section.
Yeah, well, let's say they put you in groups of 4, and they're like, okay, so you're going to write a story together. And so the first guy introduces, these are guys called the Avengers, and this guy's Iron Man, but something bad happens to him. So the second guy wants to hint at PTSD, and the third guy completely ignores it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at the moment.
I want to say that in Civil War, there were hints at it still. It's kind of like, I agree with the passing the baton thing, where it seems to me that each director says, I've set you up with all these elements that say that Tony Stark has PTSD and needs to deal with it. You should, whoever takes up this project after I'm done with it should probably, in the next project, talk about his PTSD. And the next person goes, oh yeah, he's got PTSD, we'll do elements of PTSD. The next guy will talk about how he deals with it. And then you just keep getting this passing the buck thing. So, what I saw was when they couldn't get Pepper Potts back on, when they couldn't get Gwyneth Paltrow back to play Pepper Potts, rather than doing the Iron Man 2 thing where they just replaced the actor and getting Don Cheadle to play Pepper Potts.
No, that's not how it works.
Really? When you can't get an actor, you don't just default to Don Cheadle? Damn.
Yeah, sometimes you get Nick Cage.
Sometimes you get Nick Cage. I really want to see the movie where you can't get any of the former actors back, so they just replace all the former actors with Don Cheadle, and the whole movie is just Don Cheadle talking to himself.
I thought that was Joel Heyman.
Joel Heyman. Anyway, when they couldn't get her back, they did a kind of a subtext, it was there, but they never talked about it, was that apparently Potts left Tony, which is something that a lot of people who deal with PTSD go through, where their loved ones eventually have to distance themselves because they can't deal with them not dealing with their problems.
That's actually pretty close to home. Not something that's happened to me, but something that's happened to someone close to me. And I want to introduce a new term. Can we coin a new word? Five-shadowing.
Five-shadowing.
When you foreshadow so much, and each director goes, "Oh, I like that. I'll foreshadow it," that it becomes five-shadowing.
Five-shadowed? Okay, well, this is five-shadowing. Eventually, we're going to deal with the fact that Tony Stark has PTSD and needs help.
He needs help.
We're just going to keep five-shadowing it.
That's kind of funny because you think about 5 o'clock shadow in your face. It looks always very rough.
Oh, okay. I like that. So
this is a multi-layered pun.
So I guess the consensus here is in the cinematic universe, they did a great job with the first phase because it wasn't overloaded and bloated. The second phase started to become a little bit too big. Yeah. So the third phase, I'm hoping they'll thin it out. I mean, I really honestly was hoping Iron Man 3 would be what Jack Patillo said on Rooster Teeth podcast, which was, what did Iron Man and the Hulk do when they rode off at the end of the Avengers? What's that movie about? At least we are getting we're getting a Hulk and Thor buddy movie, sort of. So maybe they could make things a little bit smaller now that they've kind of bloated to this point that the franchise itself is a Hulk. That's a hope, but from there, I guess
they tried to end franchise Hulk, and they got Edward Norton for two movies. Were there 2 Edward Norton movies?
I don't honestly know. I think there was just one.
It didn't take off.
Yeah, and so they recast him perfectly.
Oh my God, Mark Ruffalo. He's so fun.
He's always angry, too, so that works really well.
He's going to do a nude scene.
Oh, really?
So, just to diverge a little bit, it's upcoming soon. We have to vote. Presidential election is coming up. Primaries are done. Now we're doing the debates. November 8th is election day. Go vote. Joss Whedon got all of these actors that he's ever worked with together and put them into one video where they stand in front of the camera and say how important it is that you go and vote. And so 3/4 of the way through, they say, so go, vote. It's important. Save the world. If you vote, Mark Ruffalo will do a nude scene in his next film. And then they reiterate this several times. And the whole time, every time they cut back to Mark's going, I never agreed to that. What's going on? And finally they hand him a sign to promote the website to go to register to vote. He's like, they should just go vote because it's the right thing to do.
No, now that you've brought up that's why I'm going to vote.
We get to get Mark Ruffalo into a nude scene.
You remember now that we're on a tangent, do you remember the RT recap back when JJ was doing the recaps where for no reason John Reisinger started stripping while he was talking?
Yes. He was just in the back, over his shoulder. They went in there to talk to John, and he, instead of talking to them, he just started taking clothes off.
No, he was doing a thing where he thought what he was supposed to do was strip for the camera while he read the cue card. And they're like, no, you're not. You don't have to undress John. And he's like, oh, okay. And he had already half taken off his vest. Everyone's like, go on.
Go on.
And he was on a pretty good
I'm
RT short.
Watch that again then.
Yeah. Anyway, back off the tangent. Basically, the issue is, well, hopefully in Phase 3 we can start to kind of decompress. I think that's the best word, decompress the franchise a little bit, kind of spread things out.
They need to start tying off story threads. Right now they have all these story threads waving in the wind. They need to start finishing them. It's like they said about the problem with Star Wars franchise was that you started getting multiplicative plot threads. So in the first movie, it was go blow up the Death Star. You did it. That's the end of the movie. That's the plot. The second movie was you had this fight on this planet and this fight in Cloud City. It's 2 story threads. In the third one, it was a Death Star, it was the Endor moon, it was another. And then by the 7th film, there were 7 plot threads to tie up at the end of the film, and it gets weighed down by its own bulk.
Well, there is something to be said for the fact that while that might be an oversimplification, having a simple plot like that gives you a lot more room, a lot more wiggle room. So, original New Hope, while the overall arching plot is, here's some bad guys with this bad thing, let's go blow up the bad guys and the bad thing, there's also the subplots of Luke trying to find himself and Han trying to find himself, trying to redefine who he is. And there's Leia, she's very determined to get her job done. And it all ends up being character-driven. Every single story thread in A New Hope is character-driven. And then what you mentioned is like, when you get to episode 7, it's no longer character-driven, it's just, and then these guys want to do this, and so then they fight this, and they blow this thing up, and then they have to go over here, and it is no longer about character.
It doesn't matter who's doing it, it's just a thing that needs to get done.
Yeah, and there are good character moments, but there's so much more wiggle room with a simple archetypal plot, which might actually be one of the reasons why they went ahead and just did A New Hope again, so that they could use that as a backdrop.
It could be. I think that they did a good thing by using that as the backbone. I think that's a model that we should, begin to emulate in the Marvel universe, is to kind of start tying off threads so that we can have fewer concerns as we go forward in the films until we get to this ultimate fight with Thanos that we're currently on course for.
Tying stories off doesn't mean the character can't appear in other people's stories.
Right. Just because they tie off a plot thread doesn't mean the character stops existing. I mean, what Joseph was saying is true. If you think about it along character lines, A New Hope had a bunch of plot threads. But if you look at it from a story, this is what a plot is, that they'd only had one plot thread of these guys go to defeat those guys at this battle. That was it. Everything else is character. Everything else is character intrigue.
Interesting thing that I actually think is good news is Infinity War Part 2 ended up being retitled to Untitled Marvel Sequel. Infinity War is just going to be one movie. I actually think that's good news. Unless they start to stuff as much story as they can into the one movie. I'm hoping it just means that they've found a way to simplify it and not bloat it. But it could just mean they're going to bloat it even more. Just make it a 3.5-hour movie about people doing stuff at the thing. But we digress. The whole purpose of talking about the movies is...
Luke Cage.
Mainly my reason is, what does this have to do with the TV shows? The TV shows are in the MCU. What do they have to do with each other? Literally nothing.
Often.
They're their own little stories.
There was a mention in episode 1 of season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which came out recently. They started their new season 4, where they said something about Segovia Accords. And there's an enhanced human who actually did sign something somewhere that said she would abide by the Segovia Accords. So they are acknowledging it, but it really has no bearing on the story. And I guess you kind of have to do it that way so that people have a reason to go see the movie, because the movie contains the majority of the plot lines. But it just seems disconcerting to say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter and Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and Marvel Defenders are all in the same universe. And you're like, really? They are? Because I've never seen...
They don't seem to overlap.
Iron Man had never helped out when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. averted the end of the world, which they did multiple times.
Right.
So, they had Lady Sif on an episode. That was good. So, I guess now we address the question of where are the TV shows going? Because I feel like they've long given up on trying to tie into the movies. I believe it was season 1 of Daredevil, they did make a reference to Battle of New York multiple times. The criminal underground, they had a construction company. I think it was Wilson Fisk had a construction company, and he said that having to clean up after the aliens and Avengers mess was actually giving him more power in New York. Tristan, you've seen a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., at least the first season, correct?
The first season so far has been my favorite because, like you said, I think the first season of all these shows did a much better job of tying into their movies because it was just a little easier to do that then. When their plots weren't divergent, you could base the show around the movie. But now that the show has developed its own storyline that has nothing to do with the movie, it's harder to tie them in. At this point, I watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just to see more Patton Oswalt.
We had a whole conversation before we recorded about Patton Oswalt. We went on IMDb. We're like, oh, he was in this. Oh, he was in this. Oh, he was in this.
And I sat there saying, I've never heard of any of those things.
Yeah, everything you said, I was like, haven't watched it. Everything I said, you're like, haven't watched it. Oh, he was on 2 episodes of Community. Never watched that. He was on Seinfeld. Never watched that.
Oh, he's in Burn Notice.
I'm like, oh.
Never watched that.
And you're like, I've seen it 8 times. I'm like, oh.
I've watched a stupid amount of Burn Notice because I really like that show.
Malachi, how much Marvel TV shows have you seen?
like 5 episodes of Daredevil, about 6 to 10 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and not really much on that. Most I've watched is some DC stuff because I really got into the Arrow and the Flash.
All right. The basic idea of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 is S.H.I.E.L.D. is an organization that protects us from threats from without. Not only that, they protect us from things we're not ready to know about or see or have control over. So like an alien device that's very dangerous in the wrong hands, so they jettison it into space. That's kind of the concept of the show, starting out. And Nick Fury's in charge of it.
I got that from the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, so it completely, as Tristan said, broke away from that because their entire concept of a show was ruined with Winter Soldier. When in Winter Soldier we find out, it's not too late for spoilers, is it, that Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., and so then S.H.I.E.L.D. just sort of dissolves at that point, except on the show they're like, we didn't dissolve, we just sort of, now Coulson's in charge, and Nick Fury's off doing his own thing.
And we're not called S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore.
Yeah, like...
And we've got to rebuild the whole group from the ground up. Coulson can handle it, though.
Also, we're wanted, so we have to be in underground. So then the whole next 2 seasons is, out of 3, by the way, 2/3 of the show at this point, they've been in the underground and trying to avoid getting captured by the government, while also averting 2 different world-ending events. Well, really, the plot of seasons 2 and 3 centered around the Inhumans more than anything, but season 3, the Inhuman plotline was gone, and we were just dealing with Legion at that point, which was the world-ending event. But then all of a sudden, at the end of the latest season, they kind of turned it on its heel. And it's not so much a spoiler because it was like a tease scene at the end. Like, I'm not saying what happened with Legion or anything like that, but it kind of turns on its head, and they have a teaser scene towards season 3. Season 4. I'm turning my hand right now. You can't see it. I realized I was doing that.
I feel this happening.
And all of a sudden, Coulson is working for S.H.I.E.L.D. again, and they refer to the director not being Coulson. And when you're like, oh, interesting. So now that we've spent 2 out of 3 seasons not being S.H.I.E.L.D., it's S.H.I.E.L.D. again. So that's nice. So just this first episode of the first season, not saying anything about plot, except they have been doing a lot of teasing towards the fact that this season's going to have Ghost Rider in it, not Nick Cage. We keep talking about Nick Cage because I mistakenly said Nick Cage.
The brothers Cage.
Yeah, I said Nick Cage instead of Luke Cage, and then Malachi said Johnny Cage, so it's the brothers Cage. So it's not the Nick Cage Ghost Rider, it's a new Ghost Rider, and he's completely different character. He's got the same kind of concept to him. Now we're actually back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe having some way to interface with the cinematic universe again. Because when they're off, messing around with Inhumans and that kind of thing, how is Iron Man or Thor or Captain America gonna even know that that's going on? There's no way to tie it in. And I think maybe they've kind of realized that mistake. And they're pulling it back, and they're bringing it back to where Coulson will actually be involved in government work again, enforcing the Sokovia Accords, I'm assuming. So that's maybe good things for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whereas the Netflix series really don't interface in any way. Then there's Agent Carter that had no way to interface in any way with anything and then got canceled after 2 seasons, but a lot of people really liked it and are hoping Netflix will bring it back. But do you guys see that happening at all?
I don't know. They kind of gave her the wave off in Civil War when they killed her old lady self.
That is true. They kind of wanted to give closure on that, and also, Captain America making out with her granddaughter or whatever. Or great niece.
Two generations of makeouts, man.
Yeah, and then it doesn't fit in with the way that Netflix is going with their take on things. So then I guess after that, we kind of go away from the lighthearted Agent series that like to dub smash against each other and stuff, and we get to all of a sudden Daredevil came out. This was right when Player 4 podcast started as well, and It got real dark. It worked. And so then we got Jessica Jones, we got Daredevil Season 2, which introduced Punisher and Elektra, not Jennifer Garner Elektra.
Not Carmen Electra, just Elektra. There was an Elektra movie a long time ago because she was introduced on the Daredevil movie.
We will not speak of that. I will cut this.
It was a great movie. He was whacking his cane on things to see.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great movie. So anyway, I guess collectively, what's the future in your eyes of, I guess, not so much Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but just Netflix TV for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, do you think that there's any chance of interfacing with the Cinematic Universe in any way? Even like how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had Lady Sif on an episode? Or do you think that they'll ever sort of acknowledge the events of the movies? Like, I imagine the Marvel Defenders having references to Segovia Accords, perhaps, but anything beyond a passive word here and there? Or do you think that they're really just going to be concerned with kind of tying into each other?
I think that's where it's going to probably go at. It's probably going to be its own little niche, its own little world.
How about you, Tristan?
I honestly, it feels maybe it's because I don't watch TV, so I don't see advertising, but I don't feel like it's growing. I feel like it's kind of fading, but maybe I'm wrong.
What's growing or fading?
The cinematic universe in television form.
I think it's splintering. I think ABC had their take on it, and they did the agent shows, and they both started pretty lighthearted, and then they realized Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. needed to go a little bit darker. Then they explored the whole Inhuman storyline because there was going to be an Inhuman movie, and that got canned around the same time that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wrapped up their storyline with the Inhumans, and then Agent Carter got canned because it didn't fit the rest of the franchise. It was fun. And I guess that's the problem, was just fun, and was a lot of technological fluff. I liked it, but I'm trying to think of reasons why it may have not have made it, and I think its biggest weakness was it didn't fit in the timeline of what was going on. There was no way to tie it in except by foreshadowing, which they missed out on a chance to do. Not even five-shadowing.
Yeah, not even five-shadowing. So I feel like some of what they're fighting against is just all this BS about who owns the rights to what is getting in the way of stuff.
I suppose so. Like, they're being allocated certain properties, and they're like, that's all you get to use. We're not going to give you Iron Man. We're not going to give you Captain America. Go and make us something good or you're fired, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I have high hopes that maybe now that they're back to being a government organization, we can get back to what the show's actually supposed to be about. And while seasons 2 and 3 were interesting, we can sort of leave that in the past and push forward, and that would save the show. I do see it as being in a precarious situation, because while I'm enjoying it, it still doesn't seem to have grown the beard, as it were. Riker.
Right.
Riker's beard.
Or your daughter's beard.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's not refer to that random comment on Rooster Teeth. So I think, if nothing else, the Netflix series will not care about the state of the MCU. They're going to either do well or just say we're done and give up.
They're going to either succeed or fail, but they're going to do it without the help of the movies.
They're going to do it on their own time. They'll be like, okay, we're done. Or, it's going well. Let's just keep going. Or let's make more shows. And it seems like they can do it with a low budget and just be like, okay, here's a bunch of episodes. Blah! Like Luke Cage. Luke Cage it's release date. Luke Cage's release date, September 30th, which is my birthday, so I know how I'm celebrating, playing Magic. Because it's a Friday.
Yay!
And then watching Luke Cage the next day. And this episode's probably coming out long after that. But anyway, so it could just be like they just keep going, well, low budget, no parameters, we're going to do what we want, and just sort of enjoy your TV. I agree with you then, Tristan, with your assessment, which is, as a whole, the MCU TV shows are in their twilight years, and it's because the movies aren't letting them play with their toys. Right. That we had all these high hopes, and it just never came to fruition.
It was sad.
And I think it's because the Marvel movies are trying to do so much that they can only do so much in their contracts with the actors.
I think that they could probably save it if the movies would start relying on the shows, and instead of trying to jam all these storylines into the movies, introduce the plot threads in the movies, and then say, oh, hey, this gets developed more in the TV show.
I guess they're worried that if they do that, people are going to be like, well, I'm not going to watch the movie because I didn't watch the TV show. I don't know.
No. Never have the movie, and I've seen that, like, freaking Civil War did this, where they tied up a plot thread for Agent Carter in the movie, which meant very little to you if you hadn't watched Agent Carter. Like, you had to, they gave it a little bit of introduction. They gave you enough information to know that even if you hadn't read the comics or watched the show, that Agent Carter had been the person he worked with in the 40s before he, Captain America specifically, before he froze, and that they were somehow involved, and now he's just sort of transferencing over to her niece. But I don't like it when things do that. It's true. And you shouldn't tie up a thread in a movie that was not started in a movie that this is a direct sequel of. It's like, I would relate it back to when they made the second Full Metal Alchemist anime, and they fast-forwarded, effectively, through the first half of the story, because it was almost like they were expecting you to have already watched it, and it was the same as the previous series. It's like, well, no, you're supposed to be able to stand on your own. But if you introduce a plot thread in the movie and then spin off a TV show that explores that, which is what some of these did originally, like the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was Coulson's killed in the Avengers. That spun off a plot thread of, we like Coulson and he's important, how do we make him not killed?
Yeah,
that seemed okay.
I think I 100% agree with you there, Tristan. I said I think, but the seed's there. No promises there, but I might actually agree with you on something for once, Tristan. No, we agree on everything.
Always.
It's always safe to assume that people have seen the movies, so then you're pretty safe in pursuing those threads in the TV shows, whereas you can't assume the opposite, which is that they will have seen the TV show, so you can't end the thread in the movies. So I think what they did in season 1, which was the thread of Coulson being dead, is a perfect example. I didn't even think of that. So hopefully we can see some threads from Civil War happen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or else that show's probably not going to make it much longer. But as we said, I think the Netflix shows are going to be like, I don't care if the movies are being made or not. We're going to keep going. And they're going to keep making money off of it, so there's no reason to stop.
Some of them will do well. I think that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has a strong enough storyline that it can keep predicating itself. I don't know enough about the others to make a judgment like that, but they haven't impressed me, so I don't feel terribly confident about them.
I think we're going to have a lot more to say when we see Doctor Strange, and we're going to get a good picture of what Phase 3 is supposed to look like with Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
So, we'll pick this back up in November. We've got a little bit over a month.
Benjamin Cucumber. I want to see that film.
Benjamin Cucumber. Okay, so either you or Alex, whoever's editing this video, I want Benjamin Cucumber on the screen.
Oh my.
And will it be the old Benjamin Cucumber or the young Benjamin Cucumber?
That's up to whoever's editing.
Wait, if it's old, does it mean it's pickled?
Okay, Dookie Kiba, you have anything more to add?
Nope.
Nothing from Dookie Kiba. Okay, nope. Dookie Razor.
Ow.
That's what I called you when your computer crashed earlier. But I was talking to Malachi. I was like, Dookie Razor.
My computer didn't crash. I shut it down because it wasn't letting me install a thing, and it kept telling me I needed to restart. So I finally said, "Screw you," and restarted it.
But you didn't give us heads up. You're kind of just like you just disappeared.
You just went. Bleh.
Yeah, I got fed up.
So for those without a frame of reference, Tristan's computer likes to crash.
It does. It's an asshole.
Just like I want to do tonight. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Alex isn't here, so we don't get goodbye.
Now we do. We'll just put Alex's face up when you say it.
Okay. My name is Alex, and I'm being Caboose.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alex, I finally have an Arnold impression.
Oh?
So I was doing a Christopher Walken impression, and it turned into Arnold. And then I started doing an impression of Arnold being Christopher Walken. And then I started being Jay Baruchel trying to do that impression.
Jay Baruchel doing it.
Arnold doing Christopher Walken. So it started off that I was saying, like, now is the winter of our discontent. And then it was Arnold going, to be or not to be. And then it was Jay Baruchel, which was even more difficult. It was like, get to the chopper.